You're listening to The Jay Barker Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
That would be us. Hail, hail, the gang is all here following exciting weekend for Alabama football with the second half. Saw the Tide return to what I would call, and actually Kerry Clark coined it Saturday night, the Alabama standard. We saw that in the second half, and perhaps the quarterback situation has been ironed over, but boy, it certainly didn't look like that the first part of the game against Ole Miss. It's Matt and Justin. We're awaiting the coach to approach the podium and address the media for his Monday news conference, and the minute that he steps up, we will cut to that over at the Malmore football facility. But right now, just say, hey, Lars, how was your weekend?
Weekend was great. What a weekend of football. Man, just at the college level, at the NFL level, and then tonight got my Bengals playing the Rams. Looks like Joe Burrow's going to play, so we'll see what happens there. But just a wonderful weekend. Taylor Swift in the box at Kansas City got millions of Swifties tuning in, learning about football. Just a great weekend. And, my own son, he scored 5 touchdowns, ran for 250 in his game.
Tua?
He's Christian McCaffrey. He's a little Christian McCaffrey. But man, and Tua and the Miami Dolphins hanging 70 on Denver. Ooh. Wow. I mean, Tua looks as good as he ever has. I mean, and people were writing him off, right? That they were even, flirting with Tom Brady at one point to see if Tom Brady and Sean Payton could somehow work their way and become the coach and quarterback at Miami. And now you look at Tua, and he just you can tell that he was so committed in the offseason to reshaping his body, to just putting in all the work of learning how to kind of take hits, a new helmet, a new diet, and everything just came together on Sunday as he just absolutely lit up what I thought was going to be a pretty decent Denver defense. But the main storyline is Alabama just becoming Alabama again.
Sorry to interrupt, guys.
Yep.
We're going to go here to Nick Saban Live.
Came out and competed in the second half. Played a lot better in the second half. We had a couple times in the first half where we sort of self-destructed a little bit with the way we executed and some of the things that we did, and sort of eliminated some of those things in the second half and played much cleaner. And I think, played the way, we would like to continue to play and hopefully build on that. And, sort of show the players today when we watch the film, here's the reason that it worked. And here's the reason that it didn't work, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, or whatever. And that's the way I think that you actually, can have a chance to get better. So, this first SEC road game, and this is actually a bigger challenge for us than the last 2 games, in my opinion, in terms of, this team is very physical, very aggressive on defense, create a lot of negative plays. We got a lot of starters back. They know their system. They know their scheme. They play very, very well. Zach Arnett, it's his system. He's a very good defensive coach. As the head coach, has done a really good job there. Obviously, the quarterback has been an outstanding player for a long time, but, with, the new offense that they run, there's a lot more balance in it. They've got 2 really good backs that are very, very productive when they run the football. They've got a really, really good receiver, number 5, Griffin, who is very, very productive. And they made a lot of explosive plays. They throw for 250 yards or so in the passing game. They play really good on special teams. So, this is an overall really, really good team. And it's going to be a real challenge for us playing on the road in the SEC to play against, this team this week. And this is something that our players have to really focus on and do a great job in preparation so we can eliminate, some of these things that have happened in games where, whether they're drive stoppers or giving up a big play or whatever it is, we've got to eliminate those things.
Start up front here with Nick.
What's the growth you've seen from Terrion from last season at cornerback to this season at cornerback?
I think he's more confident. I think that he has less sort of, like mental lapses, but I think that the biggest thing that contributes to that is better knowledge of the defense, better knowledge of what to do, how to do it, why it's important to do it that way, and the confidence that comes with that allows you to play fast and focus on the right things. And I think he's played, a lot better this year because of those things.
Go on the far left with Kenny.
Good afternoon, Coach. When you had a chance to review the tape, what was your evaluation of Elijah Pritchett and Terrence Ferguson when they got a chance to play?
Both guys did okay. I think there were some things that we'd like to finish better. I think the big, point of emphasis with our, offensive line is you got to get your second step on the ground. You got to get your hands inside so that we can finish blocks. And that would be the case with both of those guys, but it also is sort of an overall evaluation of what we need to do to get better in the offensive line.
Go to Matt.
What do you think of how Jalen Hale played at wide receiver Saturday?
Yeah, he did a good job. Made some big plays. I think the big thing, with Jalen being a young player is got to know what to do on every play so you can go play fast and do what your job. And, so we need to work hard with him to, try to get him to where he needs to be and make sure that he's out there playing with confidence and a good understanding of the overall system of what we're trying to get done on each and every play.
Charlie?
Yeah, hey, Coach. Do you have a better idea of where things stand with Deontay Lawson? And if he can't go, where do you turn from a defensive signal caller standpoint?
Yeah, well, we played most of the game, this last week with, Jihad playing and, Tresman playing. So, that'll be the way that we go. Obviously, the depth at that position is going to become critical for us if Deontay can't go. So, and we'll keep working with these guys and try to get them ready to go this week.
Go to Chase up front.
Robbie Utes has been playing more the last couple games. I saw he was a player of the week on offense for Ole Miss. Is he playing more because his value to the offense is on the rise, or has it been more a function of specific game plans or matchups?
No, I think that, we trust the guy to do what he's supposed to do. And he's done a really good job of executing in the games and doing the things that he needs to do to for us to have success on plays. And that kind of dependability is important, because you can say what you want to say. You can be better than somebody else, but you got to play better. And I think that's the thing that Robbie's doing is he's playing better. And because he's doing what he's supposed to do, he understands what he's supposed to do, and he's been very effective in doing it.
Go in the back with Ryan.
Coach, a great challenge against Mississippi State on the road, but obviously when you think about looking across the field, no Mike Leach this year. What does he mean when you played against him as a coach, and how much you're going to miss coaching against him?
Well, I loved, Mike Leach. He was, he's different, but in a good way. Had a great sense of humor. Obviously presented, an offensive system and scheme, whatever you want to call it or name it, that was unique and very challenging. But he believed in it and, kind of did it his way. And I always had a tremendous amount of respect for him as a coach, but really liked him as a person.
Go to Rodak right here. Rodak.
Has there a chance to evaluate that sequence at the goal line after the block punt? Where do you think you can improve, and how much thought is there to going under center and maybe having a QB sneak in that situation?
Oh, there's a lot of thought about that. It was not smart on our part to do what we did, and then to get a bad snap after all that. But still, I'm not defending anybody, but with better execution, we shouldn't have snap the ball over the quarterback's head. And we've got to get on the same page on the snap count. But I agree with you that, there's a time when it's 1st and 1 at the 1. why do you need to be in the gun?
Two more, Tony, and then Nick.
This is the game against Mississippi State's one of the longest consecutive series in the SEC. Just what are your thoughts about, I guess, not having that every year, and what is this rivalry or this game? Ben, what do you think when you look back at this game, having played it?
Well, my focus is on this game. I mean, I don't look back at other games. I think there's a time and place to commiserate or celebrate or whatever you want to do relative to rivalries and the changing environment and landscape of college football. But to me, everything is about this game, our team, trying to get our team better, trying to get our team to play, winning football against a very good team. So I don't have a lot of thoughts or spend a lot of time at this time, thinking about those kinds of things.
Finish up with Nick.
I think Dallas has 4+ sacks the last 2 weeks. Can you tell during practice that he's kind of taking his preparation seriously and is focused enough to deliver those efforts on Saturday?
Well, I don't. Dallas has always been a really good player for us, and guy works hard in practice every day, tries to do everything his coach wants him to do. I think the team is important to him. He's been a good leader on the team, and sometimes you're fortunate to get sacks. Sometimes you do a great job of affecting the quarterback and you don't get sacks. So, and I think affecting the quarterback is probably a more important stat than actually sacking the quarterback. And how we can do that as a group is really, really important. And obviously, Dallas, Braz, and the other guys all contribute to that. But they all contribute to each other when they do get sacks. Whether somebody else pressures the guy, makes the quarterback move, gives you the opportunity, whether you beat your guy one-on-one or whether we, have some kind of a pressure that gives you an opportunity to go one-on-one and have a sack. So, some of those things are, they happen. They're not predictable. But when you have players that do the right things and work hard all the time and have really good ability, the chances of it happening for them are a lot greater. All right, thank you.
There you have Nick Saban with his Monday news conference following the victory over Ole Miss and leading up to the Mississippi State game, which is late Saturday night, 8 o'clock kickoff. But just as before we go to the break, remind you that this show is being presented by Haley Sansing, Union Home Mortgage. And also, Lars, just quickly, Nick Saban seemed a lot more businesslike in the last 10, 12 minutes than he has. I don't want to say salty, but it's not the kind of the effervescent and very positive Nick that we've heard through virtually every meeting with the media this year.
Back to business. Back to business. Absolutely. And there's just a different edge to his voice, and I think everybody realizes that now is the time to go, right? It's and I think everybody feels good about what transpired on Saturday and also what this team is capable of, because now they know who they are. We'll talk about that more.
We will, and talk about the difference in two halves, because it was George Dickens-like. All right, we will take our break on Big Noon Sports later in the show. He was there post-game and likely there today. ABC 3340's Jeff Spiegel will be with us. And then around 1:30, there is a documentary being premiered tonight in Birmingham about Pat Dye. We'll talk about that with their producer, Norton Dill. Hey, it's a good Monday. Glad you're with us on Big Noon Sports.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A warm afternoon. The sky partially sunny. The chance of a few isolated showers through tonight. The high today 88. The low tonight 66. Tomorrow a mix of sun and clouds. The chance of a few scattered showers or thunderstorms. The high 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 87 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering SEC sports like kudzu on the roadside. This is Big Noon Sports.
Nick Saban from the podium, as he does every Monday at noon. And he talks about the previous game a little bit, and then he moves on, in this case, to Mississippi State. I know it's a road game. I know it's a rivalry game when it comes to playing the Bulldogs, but what I've seen from Mississippi State so far, I don't think that it's going to present a huge problem for Alabama. But, Lars, let's be honest. One half of really good football does not a season make. Does Alabama maintain this physicality, this intensity, and its execution that we saw against Ole Miss only in the third and fourth quarters?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look, Ole Miss coming into the game was averaging 52.7 points, right? And after the early touchdown in the first quarter, they were shut down completely. They did 3 points the rest of the game. That shows that adjustments were made, right? And it was sort of vintage, hard-hitting, in-your-face defense after that. And I mean, the defense was dominating. Dallas Turner was amazing. This was the Dallas Turner that we thought we would see, right out of the gate. And
Braswell didn't play bad either.
No. Everybody played great. And everybody played really, really good. And also, yes, Jalen Milroe started slow, right? A red zone interception. Well, you know what happened against Texas? After he threw that first pick, he wasn't the same player. He let that affect his confidence and affect his play, right? And that is completely against Nick Saban's process, which we all know, right? It's just one moment at a time, and forget what happened in the past, because don't let it affect the future. And he did. And the fact that he could overcome that red zone interception and throw for 253 yards and a touchdown, and he's obviously not a refined passer. He's not exquisitely skilled at reading defenses, but he's getting better. And I think he's realizing that he doesn't need to be a hero out there. He's got an amazing defense. I mean, look, before Saturday, you and I we spent, Thursday, Friday talking about how we thought Alabama was going to need to put up 35 to win this game. Well, they needed to put up 11 to win this game, because the defense is so freaking good. And I know Lane Kiffin has suggested that Nick Saban was the one calling the shots and not Kevin Steele. I don't believe that. Because Kevin Steele, he is such a pro. He has been at this a long time. And it was good to see, again, the adjustments that were made, and absolutely shutting down that high-powered, high-flying Ole Miss offense. And look, this has the feel of last year. Alabama loses to LSU. They had a get-right game against Ole Miss, right? Alabama loses to Texas this year. It was a get-right game, especially in the second half. And I really think in the larger picture, the fact that Jalen Milroe kind of had to face the demon that haunted him and caused him to play not up to his ability in Texas, and to overcome that exact same issue on Saturday just shows that there's been some growth there. And perhaps, that Nick Saban has handled this as well as he could. Because, you and I both were just scratching our heads. Why didn't Jalen Milroe play against South Florida? Well, maybe just, he wanted Jalen to see everything. And I know Nick came out and said that he simply promised Simpson and Buckner a chance to get out there and a chance to play in meaningful minutes. And they did. And now it became abundantly clear that Jalen Milroe needs to be the guy. And he was in the second half. And I think it just bodes well, because now I think, we know what this team is. And this team it's like the 2009 team, right? That won the national championship with Greg
and stop them.
Yep, with Greg McElroy. And the offensive line was so much better in this game. I mean, it was just across the board, Matt. I mean, what was your? I know you've spent a lot of time analyzing this and talking about it on different shows, but what were your big takeaways from Saturday?
They dialed in some players and some positions at halftime because, and I'm sure you followed a little bit on social media, Alabama fans at halftime were just nasty. And very finger-pointing. Now, I'm not grouping them as a whole, okay? I'm talking about the ones that decided to go to social media, in this case, Facebook. And, they wanted to fire Tommy Rees. They wanted to fire all the coaches. They said that things like Jalen was the worst quarterback that Alabama's ever had, but they weren't. And what did Nick Saban preach, and what did he talk about even after the game is patience. You got to have patience and let things develop. And Alabama developed on both sides of the football. And we could do the remainder of the show and just pull a defensive player out, like Kool-Aid and Moore, and the defensive line. Do you know Quinshon Judkins just has knifed Alabama? Remember last year, the kid from down around Montgomery, the running back? Mm-hmm. He had well over 100 yards. I don't know if he got 50 in this one. The Alabama defensive line just stood up. We've talked about the linebacker play. Big shout-out to Lawson. Alabama will need him back, but Crawford did a nice job in his stead. So the defensive fronts and the offensive fronts, Lars, looked like in the second half, they looked like something that we expected and are now seeing because they pushed the Rebels around. Did you see how dog-tired the Rebels were in the fourth quarter when Alabama was just gutting them? And also, it was very interesting because it was still a winnable game if Ole Miss could pull off a couple of miracles. Did you look at Lane Kiffin in the fourth quarter? He looked like a lost man. He couldn't figure out how to move the football, and he couldn't figure out how to stop Alabama. Kiffin's expressions late in that game, I think, told it all that the Alabama standard has returned.
Yeah, and Lane is now 0-5 against Alabama, and he seemed to indicate over social media after the game that this was going to be the last time that he had ever faced Nick Saban, and I found that really strange for him to do that, even after getting beat handily, to kind of troll Nick Saban again. Suggesting that Nick Saban's going to be exiting the stage here relatively soon. But,
or was he suggesting that he was?
Yeah. It's a good.
He's a great fit at Ole Miss. I hope he stays there.
Yeah. No, I do too. But yeah, just an overall, just a great effort by Alabama, and also kudos to Mike Rodak. Right? We love Mike Rodak. He is such a good reporter, and he's the one who asked Nick Saban about going shotgun on 1st and 1 at the 1 yard line. I mean, Tommy Rees, what the hell are you thinking? It drives me insane, Matt. It is like one of my biggest pet peeves. You got this huge stud at quarterback who can just, all he's got to do is fall forward. And it's a touchdown. And you got, not only that, you got 4 chances. Fall forward.
You know what else? They've changed.
I mean, it just.
You can push the guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just.
Push him into the end zone on 4 snaps and something's wrong.
I can't believe that Nick Saban didn't overrule that. Because that was just the one of the dumbest play calls I have seen out of Alabama. Really,
mind-boggling.
It was so bad.
Up in that formation.
No, I was screaming. What are you doing? What are you doing?
Everybody was, and the fact that they went through it and ended up with just a field goal made you think back and go, "Hey, why didn't that black punt just go ahead and blow out of the end zone? That way,
you two and the ball.
But by the way, a spectacular play by Brooks and the block punt.
Yeah.
He had to go at a certain angle, and he had to get the football or it was going to be roughened. So
and that was reflective of everything across the board with Alabama. What didn't we like in the South Florida game? Effort level. And, man, they played with passion and great effort, and that was exemplified in that block punt. And it was just it was like watching a different team, right? Because against South Florida, that was the most troubling game, seriously, that I've seen since Nick Saban's been coached at Alabama, because it was the first time it appeared that the kids weren't playing hard.
Well, they certainly play hard this Saturday afternoon and evening, and nothing leads me to believe that won't be the case against the Bulldogs. Hey, there were several other games in college football worth noting.
Go Oregon.
Has the quarterback issue followed to Auburn University? Because, wow.
Oh my
they
gosh.
Absolutely could not move the football.
That was hard to watch.
It was hard to watch. It really was. And then
they need to go. They got to go with Ashford. I'm sorry.
And then there's what happened there in Notre Dame too. Whoa, what a finish. Hey, we got a lot to talk about. We can talk about it with you. Please join us at 205-342-9904. And remember the code for $30,000 this hour. Go to the Tide 100.9 app and type in 755, and who knows, you may put 30 grand in your pocket. You're listening to Big Noon Sports.
Securing the best mortgage possible requires a lender who has knowledge, is trustworthy, and treats customers like family. And no one is better at all of this than the mortgage miracle worker, Haley Sansing. Based right here in Tuscaloosa, Haley Sansing has spent decades working in the mortgage industry. With Haley, it's personal, holding your hand from contract to close. With Haley, it's about one thing, you. Call Haley on her cell, yes, her cell, 205-792-1813. That's 205-792-1813. Let Haley help you.
NLMS number 230376.
Hey, this is Reagan, owner of R&R Cigars, the Cigar Mansion in downtown Tuscaloosa, located at 2703 6th Street across from the Home 2 Suites. Come down to R&R and see why we're the ultimate cigar and bourbon experience. With over 165 bourbons and 5 private barrels, our selection of bourbon is unmatched. We have the best cocktails around, and our cigar selection is legendary. Our lounge and service are world-class. Come and experience the luxury of the mansion and see why it's a world-renowned cigar and spirits destination.
The best sports talk in Alabama. This is Big Noon Sports.
It is Big Noon Sports. You can join us anytime. We're on noon to 2. Just dial 205-342-9904. You can always dial us up on the Tide app at Tide 100.9. Let's go to the phones, in fact, right now. And Cindy is hanging on. Cindy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
I wanted to ask Lars, first of all, since he's all up in his Nebraska field, is he familiar with Jordy Ball?
Jordy Ball. You got to help me with that one.
Oh, my God, Lars, you should be planning a book on this young woman. She was the Freshman of the Year pitcher at Oklahoma, won a World Series, came back this year, won another World Series. She was the ace. She got injured late last year, so she didn't get to pitch all the World Series. But she is the most amazing pitcher you have ever seen. You need to just Google her and look at some of the videos. She stalks the pitcher's mound like a lioness. She is fierce. Awesome. She's very strong in her faith. And she left Oklahoma and went back to Nebraska because she wants to help young Nebraskan girls see what they can do in sports.
I love that. My daughters, who are 6, are playing softball, and they had a game on Sunday, and they each got hits. And I love softball, and I love the fact that she is going back to Nebraska to be an inspiration. And I will make sure that my daughters see some videos of her. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, I'm excited. They sold out their season like 5 seconds after it was announced that was her transfer place. When she entered the portal, everyone was like, what in the hell? Who would leave Oklahoma? Like, if you're the starting pitcher, if you're the ace, why would you leave?
It's
pretty amazing.
That's the gold
it's
standard
been an amazing
program.
Story.
Yeah.
Exactly. On this game, I did something I've never done as an Alabama fan, and I'm not going to say how many years I've been an Alabama fan. I went out and mowed the lawn right before the half ended.
Well,
I had my
you're doing
headphones
this every
on.
week now.
I know. No, that was the thing, because basketball, I used to only listen to radio and never watched, and it seemed every time I watched, I was a jinx. So now I went out and mowed the lawn, and they missed the field goal, and I was like, okay. I wasn't sure if Alabama was going to try to do anything with 13 seconds left or whatever, but I was like, okay, fine. I mowed the lawn, then I finished that, walked my dog. Things were getting better, and I just thought, I'm just going to keep listening, and I can watch the game. I've got it recording. So, yeah, I was really happy with it. And I wanted to say, Ja'Cory Brooks, he has to be disappointed with the way this year has gone for him offensively. And the fact that he's on special teams, that he gave all that effort and blocked the punt, I think speaks volume about his character and maybe the team's character, that they do seem all bought in together as a unit.
Yeah. And usually players only meeting is a sign of desperation, but who knows? Maybe, they came together after that really poor performance against South Florida. And by the way, I love the fact that you went and mowed the lawn. Like when one of my teams is playing, I feel like if I do some physical exercise, like if I go for a run or mow the lawn before the game, it will make it better. That's Matt. That's my pregame ritual. I gotta get some exercise in.
First of all,
I'm
Cindy,
that way too.
I love it.
I usually do Peloton or something before the game, and I didn't do anything before this Texas game, and I was so angry with myself because it was my fault they lost to Texas, obviously.
Yeah, I know it's completely irrational, but the us diehards, we do it.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I just was
Cindy,
really
great
proud.
call.
Yeah, I was proud of the team, and I had faith in Jalen going into this game. And when he threw the interception, I started to mow the lawn. My feeling wasn't anger at any of the players or disappointment in any of the players. It was more of just, okay, so this may be our ceiling this year. That may be it. And I have nothing to complain about the defense the last 2 weeks. They've been great, but you still have to be able to score some points, and they were able to do it, and they did it very elegantly too. So I was just very proud of them, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Thank you, Cindy. One of the best calls we've had since we started the show. Hope you have a great day. And Nick Saban owes you a lawnmower.
Yeah.
I could use a new one, to be honest.
You need a new one. Call the athletic department, okay?
I think we should just have a segment with Cindy and Laura Lee on Fridays at Innisfree.
And back at Innisfree, noon until 2 this Friday. Lars, I want to say one other thing, and we'll go to Joseph, but I heard a report from Malachi Moore said in the postgame after Ole Miss. He said, we call player-only meetings all the time.
Yeah.
It's just when we called this one after South Florida, it got a lot of attention. So I think that's very worthwhile and worth mentioning right now. And
no, you're right.
But
you're right.
Jordy Ball, when I first heard her talk about it, I thought she was returning to Nebraska as like a coach or as a mentor. But she actually transferred back to Nebraska to play. Man, after winning 2 national championships, boy, that speaks volumes about that hometown, that home state girl.
Yeah, she's a good Nebraskan. Nebraskan. We always go home. Don't say you can't. Don't say you can't go home again. You can.
Who's that? Thoreau? I don't know. Let's go to Joseph. Joseph, you're on Big Noon Sports.
How you doing, man?
Hey, we're doing great.
How about you?
Doing good. Well, I do want to say this while I'm on the show. In that, we'll go back in time a little bit. When you go back to 2017, when Tua had to come in for the national championship game, there's no way Jalen Hurts won that game, because when Jalen Hurts went out, we was down 21 to 7, and Tua had to come in, and Tua literally brought us back to the championship. So I think Tua won that national championship. Needless to say, it's hard to say that Jalen Hurts won that national championship when we was losing very badly. and not doing nothing with Jalen Hurts in that national championship game.
All right, Joseph, real quickly. He played a major role in getting them to the national championship. That's my point. He won a national championship. If you're talking about the national championship game, yes, you would have to lean to Tua. Okay, enough about 5 years ago. What's on your mind today, Joseph?
Okay, what's on my mind today is I think my point is proven about the players. And when they was on South Florida, they pitched the fit because Jalen Milroe didn't get the start because they wanted their quarterback to start, and they didn't want them other two quarterbacks to start. So I think they pitched the fit on that. And secondly I want to say that we're going to face Alabama's going to face a lot better defenses than Ole Miss. I mean, everybody's like, man, Alabama really showed out. Well, Ole Miss really don't have a defense. I mean, they're the bottom of the barrel. And on top of that, Ole Miss really hadn't played nobody up to Alabama. I mean, let's be honest now. I mean, they played Tulane. Who is Tulane? Tulane is nobody. I mean, the Mean Green. I mean, but and when you get the people like Kirby Smart, that's the best defensive coordinator in the country, and you beat him. Well, then you can say you've done something. But until you beat the two-time national championship coach, well, guess what? It's gonna be hard to say you've done something. It's gonna be hard to say you've done something until you go to Texas A&M, beat LSU. That Arkansas-LSU game went down to the wire, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you, that LSU and Arkansas, both their quarterbacks are better than Alabama's right now, both of them. And I'm not sure, they may not have a better team than Alabama, and I'm an Alabama fan, but I mean, I just look at it, man. I mean, Ole Miss don't have a great defense. They really don't. I mean, they just don't.
Yeah. You know what? You're, I think, really looking at this with clear eyes because you're exactly right. The Alabama offense is still a work in progress, and the tests are going to become more difficult as the season progresses. And the ultimate test would be in the SEC championship game against Kirby Smart. But the good thing is that we have finally seen improvement. Right, dramatic improvement in the second half, and again, I think this team now has the outlines of an identity that are being drawn. Like they're figuring out kind of who they are, and you're right, and it all starts with the quarterback. The quarterback has just got to play smart football, and we saw him do that in the second half.
Yeah, I got you. But I mean, as long as progress is being made, I think we'll be fine. But I think eventually, when Jalen Milroe actually has the read of defense, when Georgia disguises their coverages, and you got good athletes like that, I think eventually you're probably going to have to make the swap to Ty Simpson or swap to somebody better, because eventually, I mean, people are going to be able to disguise their coverages, and people are going to be able to.
I mean, hold on. What did you see out of Simpson against South Florida that makes you believe that he could perform any better than Jalen?
Well, because if you give him the right offensive line, I think he 10 times outperforms Jalen. Because first of all, the team didn't want to perform for Ty or nor Buckner because they was pitching a fit because they wanted Jalen Milroe.
I mean, I can't say that that's wrong, but I don't know the answer to that. You know, I couldn't say that definitively. You'd have to be inside the locker room, but based on performance, you could be onto something, but I just don't know. And, you know, I think Nick Saban absolutely made the right decision on Monday, a week ago today. First thing he said in his press conference was after having a chance to review the South Florida film, Jalen Milroe is our guy, and he's not just our guy for next week. He's our guy moving forward. And you know what? Jalen Milroe was not looking over his shoulder after he threw that red zone interception early in the game. He was not looking over his shoulder, and that was huge because his coach told him, I believe in you. And I don't think Jalen Milroe really thought that before the Texas game, because that early interception completely affected his play. But now Nick Saban comes in and tells Jalen, I'm sure privately and publicly, the leader of our team is number 4. And he played like a leader on Saturday.
When this season is all said and done, if Nick Saban is of mind, I would love to hear his deep thoughts into the entire quarterback situation.
Oh, absolutely.
All the way back to the spring. And I would hope he would just really be totally transparent and tell you, we didn't do this right. We did this right. We did this right. We didn't do this right. Because it has been a cluster, and that's nice.
Matt, I'm telling you, if Alabama were to somehow, ascend and win the national championship, that press conference from a week ago today is the turning point. That's the turning point. That's the lead. That's the lead of the story. That's the lead of the story of the season. Sort of rise or fall right now. That is the point of greatest tension. And you always want to lead at the point of greatest tension. And then Nick Saban, what was it? When did he ultimately decide? Was it on the plane coming back? Was it on the sideline down in Tampa? I mean, when did he decide in his mind, all right, enough. We're not going to let this play out any longer. We're not going to, do what we've done in the past and let the quarterback win over the team. I'm telling the team who the quarterback is.
Well,
and that is not Nick. That's not been his style.
Well, Milroe has the team, but
absolutely
over here, evidently he's had it for a while. Anyway, you're listening to Big Noon Sports, presented by Haley Sansing, Union Home Mortgage. When we get back, we'll take more phone calls. If you'd like to dial in at 205-342-9904. And when we get back, let's talk a little bit about Auburn. Let's talk a little bit about what happened at Oregon. Bo Nix for Heisman.
Bo Nix for Heisman. He gets my vote. If I had a vote,
I don't know,
he'd have my vote right now.
Penix is really good, too. But, hey, how about the Pac-12? That's just crazy. So is the show. So is Lars. It's Big Noon Sports.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Monday edition of The Game, we'll do the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is sponsored by DanielMooreArt.com. We'll feature Martin Houston. We'll talk Barrett Salee. We'll also recap Alabama and Ole Miss starting at 2 o'clock here on The Game on Tide 100.9, the home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports program in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Lee Thompson is known as the Bama Broker. She's a Tuscaloosa native, an Alabama graduate, and the only realtor in town with Wall Street experience. A skilled negotiator, Laura Lee knows how to buy low and sell high. And the Bama Broker isn't just going to show you houses. No, Laura Lee is going to educate you on the market, guide you to homes that fit your budget, and teach you how to sell your home for its maximum profit. Throughout the entire process, the Bama Broker will equip you with the tools you need to both buy a home and build financial wealth through home ownership. Trust me, the Bama Broker, who's as roll tide as houndstooth, will get you across the goal line. That's Laura Lee Thompson, the Bama Broker with Advantage Realty Group. You can reach her at 205-790-7229. Again, that's 205-790-7229. And you can also email her at lauralee@thebamabroker.com. That's Laura Lee @thebamabroker.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A warm afternoon. The sky partially sunny. The chance of a few isolated showers through tonight. The high today 88. The low tonight 66. Tomorrow a mix of sun and clouds. The chance of a few scattered showers or thunderstorms. The high 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 88 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
From T-Town to the Plains, this is Alabama's most in-depth analysis on the SEC. This is Big Noon Sports.
Indeed it is. Lars Anderson, Matt Coulter, Justin Jones is our outstanding producer. Appreciate all of you dialing us in. We'll take a few more phone calls if you'd like to join in at 205-342-9904. Lars, let me just open it up. You've got the table here to talk about what Oregon did to Colorado.
Oh, man. Yeah, Colorado not yet ready to be in prime time, so to speak. Oregon just absolutely manhandled them. This is the line of scrimmage. I mean, Bo Nix played a beautiful game. It's a really nice story about Bo Nix really finding his voice, so to speak, finding his way at Oregon. You know, he dreamed of being the Auburn starting quarterback, and he was. And then, you know, he had conflict with Brian Harsin, and I was texting with our friend Carrie Estes, right, a writer who's we're both very close with, and what caused Bo Nix to leave Auburn? Was it a combination of criticism from fans and Harsin, or was it Harsin, like 99% Harsin, 1% fans? And I think, Bo Nix, he grew up in a football family. He's had the spotlight on him for a long time. And I think clearly it was a disagreement with the coaching staff. Would you agree with that, Matt?
I would think so, especially since his dad was a head coach, and his dad was the offensive coordinator at Miami. He knows a lot of football, so he knows the coaching side and how you're supposed to handle situations. And let's face it, it wasn't all Harsin. Bo Nix didn't play very well at times at Auburn, and he needed a fresh look.
Yeah.
And Oregon presented that. I think the two or three reasons that you just gave us are probably certainly more than sometimes he'd hold the ball too long or try and run with it when he was at Auburn. I think that had more to do with it, but I think we do have to remember that he made some mistakes. And
yeah,
man,
well,
he was the country helped him.
He was so young. I mean, you thrust him in there as a starter, as a true freshman, as the savior of the program, and then very first game, he throws that game winner against Oregon, right, out in I think it was Jerry World, and the legend begins to bloom, but he wasn't ready for it. It's difficult to be a starting quarterback in the SEC. And especially when you're 18 years old and you have just you're carrying the hopes and dreams of so many people, and it's like, remember just being a freshman in college, how hard it is just to adjust to not living at home anymore and being away from home. And
television, and
I mean, yeah, it's yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, man. And so I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for Patrick and just the entire Nix family. They kept doing camera shots on them in the crowd, and they just were beaming with joy and pride watching their son just dissect that Colorado defense. And man, Oregon just absolutely shut Colorado up. And I hear what Deion Sanders is saying after the game. He took it, but he said, "You better get us now. You better get us now." And you know what? Scott Frost did that exact same thing. You better get us now. And that didn't work out so well in Nebraska. But every kid, it seems, in the country wants to play for Deion Sanders.
And so
you know what?
You better get him.
You're darn straight, because you know what they're going to do in the offseason? They're going to get a brand new offensive line. They're going to get a brand new defensive line, because they already got the skill players. And Deion Sanders has already said that his son is coming back, even though he would likely be a first-round draft pick, right, the starting quarterback. And, man, I think Deion Sanders is right. You better get him now, because as much as you and I don't really care for some of the stuff coming out of Boulder, this team's going to be incredibly good next year, because he got 70 or 80 players out of the transfer portal this last year.
70.
I mean, 70. And so what? Now he'll pick 20. He'll get a first and second string offensive line and a first and second string defensive line.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure he's got NIL money now too.
Oh my goodness!
All
And
those people in Vail are throwing money at Boulder.
Yep, it's crazy. But no, I think I'm serious. I think Colorado will contend for the national championship next year.
I don't know about that far, but I see them maybe being a 500 team this year. But yes, they will be vastly improved. They're vastly improved this year. But my only, and actually I have several, but I mean, he says it's not about me. He said in the pregame, it's not about me, it's about this team. But that's not true. It is about him, and he makes it about him. So I think he contradicts himself there. But when he talks about other coaches and other teams calling him out and not respecting him and objecting to that, and then he turns around and does it right back. So, that's just Deion. He was doing that when he was at Florida State.
And yes, okay. And his kids reflect him. And so they act the way he does. And they just, it's like, again, truth doesn't matter. The Nebraska game, I'll go back to it because it's relevant. The Colorado players said they felt disrespected because Nebraska was standing on the logo 4 hours before the game. Well, it turns out that Matt Rule, that's where Nebraska holds their team prayer. And they pray for safety for for players on Nebraska and players on the opposing team. And Matt Rule even asked Shedeur Sanders to join. And Sanders came out after the game and just completely lied and fabricated about it. He didn't say that it was a team prayer. Okay, and so what happens on Saturday? Well, there's a video of Colorado players going to the midfield and kicking the logo.
Yeah, I saw that. Scraping their cleats against it.
Yeah. I mean, this is all kind of nonsense, right? I mean, in Ryan Day, the Ohio State head coach, using Lou Holtz, an 80-year-old man, for motivation because of what he said. I mean, it's getting out of control, Matt. But again, Colorado, their players are behaving in a way that I find very distasteful, and that comes from how their head coach is behaving.
Exactly, and how he's behaved all his life. So.
Yeah.
The old school coaches like Dan Lanning don't like that very much.
Oh man. Don't you think all the country was rooting for Oregon, and they just laid the wood to Colorado?
And guess where they go next?
I don't even know.
They get to see Caleb Williams.
Yeah, they get USC.
All right. When we get back, let's go to ABC 3340's Jeff Spiegel. He was there Saturday afternoon and asked the question that actually made Nick Saban smile, made him just chuckle a little. We'll get back with the second hour of Big Noon Sports, presented by Haley Sansing, Union Home Mortgage.
Go inside the Alabama Crimson Tide with the Gary Harris Show.
Hey, everybody, it's Gary Harris. Coming up Tuesday on the Gary Harris Show at 9 a.m. on Tide 100.9 FM. Drew DeArmond, the Rocky Man. We'll talk some Bama football with him. Also, the Titans report with Kayla Anderson. Boy, that Tennessee offense is struggling. What's the future hold for Derrick Henry? We'll ask her tomorrow morning.
Catch the Gary Harris Show Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. on Tide 100.9 and Tide100.9.com.
It's the Tide 100.9 30K Workday Payday. Woo! Win cash every weekday 8 to 5. Here's this hour's cash code.
522. Again, that's 522. The code is 522.
Enter that code now on the Tide 100.9 app. Click on the 30K Payday button and enter the code for a chance to win $30,000.
From T-Town to the Plains, this is Alabama's most in-depth analysis on the SEC. This is Big Noon Sports.
by Haley Sansing, Union Home Mortgage. It's Matt and Lars and Justin, and we're joined by our weekly guest, one of our favorites, ABC 3340 sports director. That's Jeff Spiegel. Jeff, how you doing today? A little hotter.
Great, guys.
It was. Yeah, good.
How are y'all?
Oh, man, life's good. And if you're following Alabama from the second half of Ole Miss on, life is really good. Kind of a troubling first half. Let's start right there. What did you think after the pick into the end zone?
I thought Ty Simpson was going to start the second half. I really did. I thought he was going to pull like a Tua and bring in Simpson to start the second half. I really did, because it wasn't just the pick. I mean, there were misreads, that he made, and I just went to the quarterback club just a little while ago and talked to Dick Coffey. Everyone knows Dick Coffey, and they publishers the Dick Coffey guide and everything, that little booklet that we all love, Matt and Lars.
Yeah,
and I use that like 1,000 times a year. But he was sitting in the stands like he always is, and he said, "Holy cow." There was some foul language being thrown about during that first half from the fans, because it was frustrating, and I just knew in the second half that, number 15 was going to trot out there, but, give Saban credit. I mean, he felt like his defense was playing well enough, again, like in South Florida, to win that football game. And when you have a defense like they do, and I think I can make this statement only 4 games in, that's a national championship level defense right there. I think. I really do think it is. And when you have a defense like that, you can afford to be a little bit more patient with your quarterback. And I asked him, asked Saban the question after the news conference, is how much does patience come into play when you're grooming a quarterback? And, he talked about how, he visits with the quarterbacks, and, he teaches them. And, and when you're a teacher, you have to have patience, because, so people don't get it like right away. I've had to learn like 4 different editing systems since I started into TV. And the people who were teaching me those editing systems must have gotten so frustrated, because I wasn't getting it. It was like Jeff Spiegel in geometry and trigonometry class all over again. I just wasn't getting it. But after a while, it started to sink in. The turning point, I think, we're going to look back on this Jalen Milroe thing, and the turning point was when he threw that touchdown pass to Jalen Hale, and he took a shot. And then he was down for a little while, and then he jumped up and ran off the field celebrating and all that. That made such an impression on his teammates. The toughness that he showed on that play, hanging in there when he knew he was going to get rocked, because this guy was coming in like 90 miles an hour, and he completed that pass. And we may look back on that. Look, I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. This is not Bryce Young 2.0 we're talking about here, but I think we're going to look back on that play at the end of the year, and we're going to go, that's when it happened. That's when he finally won the team, lock, stock, and barrel, and Alabama moved on and did some really cool things.
And he dropped a dime too now.
Yeah.
I mean, that pass to Hale, and then I think the way he must have just gotten the breath knocked out of him. I think that's been confirmed. But the way he jumped up and fisted like Tiger Woods and ran to the sidelines. And then, as you predicted, we did see Tyler Simpson. And that was a pretty good play on the 2-point conversion.
It was a really good play because he got face masked. And, he could have just gone down at the 1 or the 2, but he fought through that. And then right after that play is when you had the big hit on the kickoff return by Jam. And, it was a targeting call, but it was such a ferocious hit that, I mean, those 3 plays right there, back to back to back. And, Lane Kiffin's team was done after that point.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. You never want to be prisoner of the moment and overreact, but you are 100%. I'm with you 100%. Like that's the moment. That throw, and also Coach Saban's decision to stick with him in the second half. That sequence of events is if this team goes on to do something special, that is going to be sort of when it actually happened, right? The magic started to unfold. But hey, I want to ask you like a journalism geek question. When you ask a question like the patience one, and it gets so much play all around the country, how does that make you feel? Like, and you get no credit. You get zero credit for it. I'm serious because I'm sure that's happened to you, many times
it happens
before.
to him all the time.
Because because Jeff, you seriously, you are so good in those settings, and you know what to ask because you're a veteran and you're a pro. But just on a personal level, I mean, wouldn't you like just a little like, hey, I'm the guy who asked the question?
Well, first of all, I had no idea it got a lot of play. No clue at all. Because, after we got done, with the game, I'm trying to, and Matt knows this. He was in TV for years, and, you're trying to beat the deadline. And then the next thing you're focused on is, you want to get home and try to get some sleep. And then you got to get up the next day and, and produce, a 30-minute show, that we do with Doug Sigrist and Ryan Brown. And so I have no idea how much play, like the soundbite guy. Dick Coffey mentioned it to me at the quarterback club that, rarely do you see Saban smile in post-game, interviews. And so, that was kind of cool. And, people ask, we joke about this in the office. We go, Nick Saban knows your name based on what he said last year when he said, "Oh, Jeff, I know you're going to ask a real professional question." Well, he did that to get under like the beat writer's skin. And I know that because one of the beat writers had asked a question that he didn't like before. So I never, tried to think that this guy knows who I am when I'm asking a question. But one thing Josh Maxson told me a long time ago is that if you have a well thought out question and you can ask it in 15 seconds or less, he respects that. If it's well thought out and it's well, it's just well put. It's well put together. Not that I spend like 2 hours formulating the question, but I mean, if it's well thought out and it's something and it's not just silly, then he respects that. So that's the way I've always tried to approach that. Now, look, over the years, I've been dressed down by Nick Saban before at news conferences, so it's gone completely the other direction. But even in that case, when it happens, it feels like he used me to try to get a message across to the team. I sure hope I didn't take too long to answer.
No, that's really good. And just following up on that. Writer friends have asked me, what's it like to cover Nick Saban? And the thing is, I'm not there day in and day out, right? Never have been. But I think Nick Saban, he unlike, Bill Belichick, he gives you so much material. And he is so thoughtful when you ask the right question, right? Because he'll dig deep. Whereas most coaches, they give you nothing in these press conferences, but Nick will absolutely, give you sort of literary gold, so to speak. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I totally agree with it. And also, I never leave a press conference without learning something that I can maybe use on a personal basis. You know, I mean, he kind of. He not only coaches his team up at these press conferences, but, if you will, allow yourself, to try to get a nugget from it that maybe you can use, in your personal life. I've had many occasions where I've left the Nick Saban press conference and I go, well, yeah, that's a really cool way to look at things.
He makes you think, right? He makes
really
you think.
Does. But I'm telling you, I was at the Knicks Kids thing a few weeks ago, and there were a couple of guys who were starting new on the beach. And at the moment, I can't remember, who they were going to be working for. But Josh was, breaking it down, just what I told you a while ago. He was kind of giving him tips on, survival tips, on the favorite press conferences. And it was beautiful, because I think Josh does an incredible job.
He does do a great job. Yeah.
And, he's not, he looks out for Nick, but at the same time, he knows you have to do your job. And he knows you're going to have to ask a tough question every now and then. And he respects that, but he also tries to, look out for you and make sure you stay out of trouble when you're going down an unnecessary path.
Well, a bigger picture question. You, like Matt and I, but especially you, because you're there all the time in the room, your observation of Nick Saban and sort of where he is right now in terms of how long he wants to keep doing this, because man, there's just been so much speculation about this could be, his last year. Lane Kiffin seemed to be trolling Nick Saban by suggesting, this is the last time that we'll face each other, or doing everything sort of in the past tense. But what's your assessment?
My assessment is he still loves his job, and he still thinks he can do the job better than anyone. And I really feel like he can. And I really think he gets fired up when there's a challenge in front of him. Like, he didn't want to lose to Texas. He didn't want to lose to Texas, but he knew that was a dang good football team that came in there and beat him. And he's got so much respect for Sark. And so he kind of took it on the chin, but he goes, well, you know what? We just got to get back to work. We're going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. It's like he told Chris Lowe last week that in 16 years, did you not expect a bump in the road? This fan base has been so incredibly blessed by what has happened over the last 16 years with this man in charge. And it's been an amazing run of quarterbacks as well. So there's been a drop-off at the quarterback position. It doesn't mean Jalen Milroe can't play and he can't win. It just means he's not Bryce Young. Well, who is? And so I think, Nick is trying to figure this out. And for the first time in a long time, the fan base has just got to be patient with him and let him and his staff figure this out. But I think he gets a charge out of, climbing up that mountain year after year after year. And I think he's still in incredible physical shape, and he's mentally sharp. And I think he's got more football coaching left in front of him.
I do as well. Hey, can you talk a little defense when we get back? Can you hang on?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. ABC 3340's one and only Jeff Spiegel is with us, and we will continue the conversation in just a moment.
I hear a lot.
Securing the best mortgage possible requires a lender who has knowledge, is trustworthy, and treats customers like family. And no one is better at all of this than the mortgage miracle worker, Haley Sansing. Based right here in Tuscaloosa, Haley Sansing has spent decades working in the mortgage industry. With Haley, it's personal, holding your hand from contract to close. With Haley, it's about one thing, you. Call Haley on her cell, yes, her cell, 205-792-1813. That's 205-792-1813. Let Haley help you.
NLMS number 230376.
Hey, this is Reagan, owner of R&R Cigars, the Cigar Mansion in downtown Tuscaloosa, located at 2703 6th Street across from the Home 2 Suites. Come down to R&R and see why we're the ultimate cigar and bourbon experience. With over 165 bourbons and 5 private barrels, our selection of bourbon is unmatched. We have the best cocktails around, and our cigar selection is legendary. Our lounge and service are world-class. Come and experience the luxury of the mansion and see why it's a world-renowned cigar and spirits destination.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A warm afternoon. The sky partially sunny. The chance of a few isolated showers through tonight. The high today 88. The low tonight 66. Tomorrow a mix of sun and clouds. The chance of a few scattered showers or thunderstorms. The high 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 89 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
More Big Noon Sports coming up.
Big Noon Sports on a sunny, actually kind of a hot, almost summerish day, Monday here in September. Jeff, I wanted to talk a little bit more defense. You said earlier, just a moment ago, that you thought it was national championship caliber. But a couple of three guys really stepped up and then some this past weekend. And I'll start with Terrion Arnold, who ended up with the pick, and he also had the leading number of tackles. In fact, go ahead with Arnold and this secondary. I'm not sure I can remember one recently that was better.
Well, he also had a big pass breakup late in the first half in the end zone, which was huge. And Lane Kiffin mentioned in his press conference that last year they picked on him, and I think a lot of people did. But he's definitely stepped it up this year, and he's a very vocal leader back there. He's really a smart guy. He's incredibly good in the interview room too, but he has certainly stepped up his play, and you're right. I mean, Caleb Downs had a really good game too, but Arnold was the leading tackler, and he did have that big pick and an incredible return as well. But I think the DBs are a solid group of players.
And what is sort of the hallmark of this defense? To me, it's almost like they're good at all three levels. And I thought really the defensive line played so well on Saturday. But if you were to pick sort of one position group that really sticks out over, in looking at all the past Saban defenses, what position group would that be?
Oh, gosh, it's kind of hard to say, but, certainly the Dallas Turner's terrific. I mean, he's going to be fantastic. And the DBs, I forgot to mention Malachi Moore. Malachi Moore had a huge hit on Jackson Dart there late. And it's kind of one of those situations where the defense, just got stronger and stronger and stronger. I mean, you really felt like, if they came out and told Nick Saban, hey, I tell you what, let's give Ole Miss 2 more quarters, to try to score. You okay with that? And Nick could go, yeah, because they're not going to. But because the defense was getting stronger and stronger as the game went on, and they just punished Dart. And it's going to be one of those things. And one thing that Bear Bryant used to say, and Coulter probably remembers this, is that if the team that we beat played well the next week, then we didn't do a good enough job against them.
Oh, man, I've never heard that before.
Right. Yeah. So, in other words, don't be surprised. And LSU is going to be tough for Ole Miss to beat anyway, but they've got them at home. But don't be surprised if there's some kind of hangover, especially on the offensive side of the ball, over what happened to them Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
I mean, yeah, Matt, just real quick. I mean, you've seen that Alabama, especially the defense, they've broken teams in the past. Remember the Florida State, the season opener against number 1 versus 2? Alabama throttles them. They're not the same again. And now they're
that wasn't just the next game. That was
it's taken years until this year for them to get back to where they were. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a long list of teams that would fall under that category. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I wanted to go across the state. It seems like the quarterback woes have managed to find Auburn and leave Alabama. Your thoughts on Auburn? And, Hugh Freeze can only work so much magic. He's got to have a few horses out in the pasture.
Yeah, and I just talked with Johnny Condon, who was there at Hugh Freeze's press conference, and he sent me back a soundbite that we're going to run at 4, and it's Freeze going. There's times I feel like we've let all those guys down because of all the other components that go into the passing game. And that's where he says, I'm determined to try and help get fixed this week, before you give some final grade on a quarterback's play. There were a bunch of issues. First of all, let's go back to the offensive line. I mean, you give up 7 sacks and 15 tackles for loss. I mean, you can't get any offensive traction that way. Now, Hugh Freeze warned us back on Monday that there was a big mismatch here in terms of talent level on offense and defense. That, this great recruiting class that Jimbo Fisher brought in that was so controversial. Well, those guys are dudes, and they're fast and they've got closing speed, and they just kind of took over, the third quarter, against Auburn, and none of the quarterbacks were effective. So it leaves you to think, who's the best option? And look, but there are a bunch of people who are not playing well on that offensive side of the ball. But I feel confident they're going to go with Peyton Thorne and try to give him a go. And Auburn's only hope against Georgia, and it's a slight glimmer of hope, is that they can do what UAB did on the road, force them into some turnovers, try to get a lead, and then give it to the crowd to try to, intimidate the heck out of this, new quarterback. And maybe they can win the game then. But to me, it looks like one of these situations where the Georgia defense is just going to eat up these guys. Defense travels, as they say. And I think it's going to be a day that Georgia puts it all together. And that's a nightmare scenario for Hugh Freeze at Auburn.
All right. Speaking of Auburn, former Auburn quarterback Bo Nix absolutely lit up Colorado, 4 total touchdowns. And according to most sports books, he's now the number 3 in the Heisman race. And I can't believe this stat, but he's completing 79.3% of his passes. 79.3. Yeah. 79.3. Okay, so Jeff, you've had a front row seat to when Bo being in high school, his dad, Auburn quarterback, goes to Auburn, doesn't work out, now at Oregon and having so much success. Just your thoughts, just in general of the Bo Nix story.
Well, I love this kid, and I love his family. I mean, he's just a really cool guy, and I'm just very happy, for him to have the success that he's having. And there were a lot of eyebrows raised, when he left Auburn and went all the way to the other side of the country, to play football. And there were some people who were upset with him, but more people should be upset with Brian Harsin. For kind of messing this up and letting this guy get away.
Matt and I were, sorry, I hate to interrupt. Matt and I were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Is Harsin the reason why he left?
Absolutely. Absolutely, positively. Well, the reason he got hurt, was because, first of all, the offensive line has had issues for a while. And that's one of the reasons, his year ended, prematurely, in the Mississippi State game. But it's just there was never ever a comfortable relationship, between Harsin and Bo Nix, and with Harsin, it was one of those things where, he had no interest in repairing that, no interest in it at all, and I don't know. Look, I don't know how much interference, that Patrick ran. I have no idea what that side of the story is. But I know this. You can see right now what kind of quarterback Bo Nix is. He was that kind of quarterback at Auburn. Can you not see that talent and say, you know what? I'm going to do what I can to make this guy happy. I'm not going to make him the center of the universe and more important than the football team, but he's my quarterback. And I'm going to do everything I can to, A, protect him, and B, to give him an environment where he can win and the guy can be happy. And that's where he is right now in Oregon. And he's loving life, and I couldn't be happier for him.
Is Brian Harsin the worst coach in the history of Auburn football?
Absolutely, positively. I mean, you may find an argument from the older heads who would say Doug Barfield was worse. Doug Barfield at one time, okay, remember this, Matt, had James Brooks, William Andrews, and Joe Cribbs in the same backfield, and he couldn't win.
Nope.
What?
You remember that story of some Florida scout just walked onto the field, walked over to the coaching staff, just started talking to them about what they're doing and all that kind of stuff, and he was on the Florida staff. It was amazing.
No,
also,
I think, yeah.
What's the Patrick Nix claim to fame in Auburn football history? You remember what he did?
Well, he came in the 1993 Iron Bowl, and first play, had barely even warmed up, hits Frank Sanders with a touchdown pass, and that's pretty much your ball game.
Yeah, it was. And I think it was Stan that got hurt, and they just
towards
stepped
ACL.
up and they did something. They did something that Alabama was never expecting, and Tommy Johnson loves that moment to the day because Sanders went up and over him.
He also threw a pretty good touchdown pass to Frank Sanders to beat Florida in the Swamp too.
Yeah, I remember that.
Quarterback.
Yeah, he was really good.
And a really fine man, too. I loved seeing him as they showed him often on the television when they were just absolutely beating the stew out of the Buffs. All right. Hey, tell everybody what to watch this Friday as far as your high school is concerned and how they can dial in the zone on Sunday nights.
Yeah, we got Blitz Game Day on My 68 at 6:30 on Friday, and then at 7 o'clock we'll have Parker and Pleasant Grove as our game of the week, and then Sunday nights at 10:35, the zone on ABC 3340. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for the time.
You bet.
Yeah, great stuff, Jeff.
Hey, speaking of Auburn, there is a new documentary on Pat Dye called Mighty. And I was able to get in touch with their producer this morning. That's Norton Dill. And he will join us as its premiere is tonight, but it won't be the first and only time you can see it. Stay tuned. Big Noon Sports brought to you by Haley Sansing, Union Home Mortgage.
Join Tide 100. This is the Big Noon Sports Network.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Monday morning quarterback edition of the Big Noon Sports, which is from noon to 2, and we got about half an hour left here. And I wanted to bring on Norton Dills, the producer of Mighty, which is the documentary about Pat Dye. Norton, welcome to the show, man. How you doing? How you been?
I am doing just great, and I was pleasantly surprised to get a call invited to the show. I really appreciate that.
Well, this show originates out of Tuscaloosa, but Alabama fans know and appreciate Auburn's Pat Dye. I do. I was there almost for every single season that he coached at Auburn and appreciate the coach, but really more the man. Just kind of give us the genre and tell us how this started and where you've gotten to today. I know we could take 30 minutes on that, but you've got the floor here for at least a few here, Norton.
Okay, interrupt me if I get too long-winded because I'm really passionate about this project. Of course, Coach Dye died in June of 2020, and of course that was a sort of a down year for everybody. But right toward the end of the year, Slat Slayton, who is a guy that I've worked with for many years, Slats and I had worked with Jimmy Rain for years and years doing his Great Southern Wood commercials, Yellowwood, and prior to doing Yellowwood, we did all the commercials with SEC coaches. So that's been going on a long time. But we got word from Jimmy that he was interested in doing a documentary to honor Pat Dye. He and Coach Dye were very close friends. And it really hit Jimmy hard when he passed away. So it started, we started filming in January of 2021. And for the next year and a half, we were doing interviews all over the place and piecing this story together. And it was just a really great experience.
Norton, I was fortunate enough to be a writer on a Showtime documentary on Lawrence Phillips, and in just putting together the story arc is kind of challenging. Just tell us, like, how do you tell the Pat Dye story?
Well, it's interesting. I've done a number of documentaries, and I always take the approach of letting the people that you interview do the narrative of the story. And one of the things that I've always said about documentary filmmaking, probably one of the things that I love most about documentary filmmaking, is that you start out thinking you know what film you're going to make, and very quickly you begin to discover things that you didn't know about. And that was certainly true on this project. And those discoveries that you make along the way are often the very things that not only change the story as you know it, but also bring that story to life. And we certainly found that to be true. This documentary is told not only just by the people that we interviewed, but also there are a lot of scripted places and narration. And Slats and I worked on this together. Slats was actually the director of the film, and he pretty much put the story together. We collaborated on it. I directed all of the interviews and did the cinematography, and I also did the music for the project. So it was a very collaborative project. But one of the interesting discoveries that we made right off the bat was, this happened during the first 2 days of shooting. I think that those 2 days we had 7 or 8 interviews. One of them was Nancy McDonald, who was Pat Dye's longtime friend and partner. And the rest of them were these tough football guys. And out of 7 interviews with men on those 2 days, 5 of them broke down and just cried like babies. And I don't mean that they just teared up a little bit. I mean, they were crying hard. And that was such an eye-opener for me to see how these tough, strong men felt so strongly about Pat Dye that when they talked about it, it just brought tears to their eyes.
Who all did you interview? And I know you can't list them all, but there are some very, very prominent Auburn people, some very prominent people, period, that contributed as far as the interviews are concerned for Mighty. And just give us I don't want to give the documentary away because you want people to go attend, and it's tonight. We'll get into that in a second. But give us some of the guys that contributed and maybe one of the stories that perhaps a lot of people don't know about Pat Dye. Okay, good deal. Well, I'll give you a quick rundown, and this will just be a handful of it. We did, over 30 interviews over a period of a year and a half. Bo Jackson, Wimp Sanderson, Larry Blakeney, Vince Dooley, Fran Tarkenton, Paul Feinbaum, just all sorts of folks. A whole lot of SEC coaches, a couple of players. Did I mention Charles Barkley? We interviewed him. But then we also interviewed people that you've never heard of, and their stories were just as important as the football stories. People that Pat Dye worked with on his farm, and we started discovering all these things about Pat Dye that the general public may not know about. I think that's going to be one of the special things about seeing film.
Norton, you mentioned that several of his former players, just in the first, 48 hours of shooting, broke down and were crying when they talked about Pat Dye. Well, what is it Why is there such a, if you can describe it, what is that emotional bond that they have with their former coach?
Most of these people, whether they were players or coaches or regardless of how they were associated with Pat Dye, most of them credit him with their success, not just in football, but with success in later life. And he was known for being tough as nails, and I'm sure you know that. Nancy McDonald said something real funny. She said, one time I had somebody say, "Oh, Pat Dye, he's just a big old teddy bear." And Nancy said, "Yeah, he's a teddy bear, but watch out, there's a grizzly in there also." And it was that toughness that they respected, and he worked them hard, but at the same time, at the end of a desperately difficult practice, he would go around to them individually and let them know that he loved them, he appreciated them. And I think that's the combination of those things, driving them hard and loving them like crazy, So many of them said that he was a father figure to them,
A lot of people compare him to Coach Bryant and still do about the way he could just coach them, and then love them. Norton, tell everybody about the documentary, about as far as where they can see it and more information about following it.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. Tonight on Alabama Public Television, it will air starting at 8:00, and it's a good 2-hour program. It's a long documentary, and the main reason for that is because Jimmy Rain, who was the executive producer and made all of this happen, Jimmy Rain wanted us to make the story as long as it needed to be to tell his whole story. So 8:00 tonight on APT. And interestingly enough, it's also airing tonight in Georgia on Georgia Public Television, because strong roots on the Georgia side and the Alabama side for Pat Dye. And they chose an interesting week to do it because Saturday is the Auburn, Georgia football game in Auburn. So it's great timing for the film to air this week.
Historians of the game of football at Auburn will cite, I think it was a 13-7 loss to Georgia in Dye's first season, that program became Pat Dye's, even in a loss. He was a remarkable man. I look forward to watching tonight. Norton, thank you for your time, and when you get another one, let us know. We'll talk about it again on Big Noon Sports.
Thanks so much. Great to hear from you.
Thank you, Norton.
Well, know what I'm doing tonight? You got Monday Night Football on the Bengals. What a quagmire.
Are you going? Are you going to the premiere?
No, I thought I read where the premiere was at the Lyric, but I guess it's the premiere is on TV. But there may be a premiere at the Lyric. I'd have to sort that out. Probably should have gone into detail with the producer of the show, so I didn't cloud the issue. But anyway, we do know that we can watch it tonight on APT. And our thanks to Norton Dill. I'll bet that thing is amazing. Hey, there are a lot of kind of scattered pieces other than Alabama and Auburn football, but we got to get to a couple of things from the National Football League when we return and wrap up this Monday edition of Big Noon Sports, presented by Haley Sansing, Union Home Mortgage.
Go inside the Alabama Crimson Tide with the Gary Harris Show.
Hey, everybody, it's Gary Harris. Coming up Tuesday on the Gary Harris Show at 9 a.m. on Tide 100.9 FM. Drew DeArmond, the Rocky Man. We'll talk some Bama football with him. Also, the Titans report with Kayla Anderson. Boy, that Tennessee offense is struggling. What's the future hold for Derrick Henry? We'll ask her tomorrow morning.
Catch the Gary Harris Show Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. on Tide 100.9 and Tide100.9.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A warm afternoon, the sky partially sunny, the chance of a few isolated showers through tonight. The high today 88, the low tonight 66. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds, the chance of a few scattered showers or thunderstorms. The high 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 89 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering SEC sports like kudzu on the roadside. This is Big Noon Sports.
Final thought from you, our listeners to Big Noon Sports. If you'd like to join us, call 205-342-9904. Wanted to just pick up a couple of pieces and continuing on college football. What did you think about the end of the Ohio State-Notre Dame game? Ooh, 10 men on the field playing defense.
Yeah, inexcusable from the Notre Dame coaching staff. And I thought it was just a gutsy performance by Ohio State and their quarterback and going down the field, knowing that you have to get a touchdown. And there's some questionable play calling leading up to that final touchdown, a jet sweep on the side. Matt, run the ball between the tackles. If you're Ohio State, and you got to get in the end zone, run the ball between the tackles. They learned their lesson. They did it the final play of the game, got in by about an inch. And, oh, by the way, they kicked the field goal to make it a push for those of us who put a lot of money on Ohio State getting yes, yeah. It was the greatest push in the history of pushes because, it didn't look good there for a while. But I think this is a game that can propel Ohio State forward. And, that's probably the most impressive win of the season by any team. And I thought Ryan Day's comments were really strange after the game. Again, like just pointing the finger at Lou Holtz, who's 80 years old. I mean, come on. He said, I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now. But Lou Holtz
be a little strange every once in a while.
Lou Holtz did call out. I mean, he called Ohio State soft, and he called out Ryan Day by name on the Pat McAfee show. And so I get it that it was personal to Ryan Day, and he clearly was really ticked off by the comments. And I don't know what was Lou Holtz out of line by saying those things, Matt?
He didn't think they were physical. That's his opinion. Don't break down a Hall of Fame national championship quarterback. I found it very odd. I kind of understand it, but if you just asked me point blank, I would say it was inappropriate.
Yeah, me too.
Leave the guy alone. I mean, he has his opinion.
Yeah.
But because Holtz is Notre Dame, that's why he did it. I mean, we all see why he did it. I just didn't think he needed to.
Yeah, and I think Ohio State is really well positioned now. It's all going to come down to Ohio State, Michigan. Whoever wins that game is going to be in the college football playoffs.
Who's going to win it? Your call right now.
Ohio State.
Really? I would say Michigan, but that's why we do this. All right, Florida State and Clemson. First of all, what a terrific football game, and I really thought Clemson had it until Klubnik fumbled the football and Florida State returned it for a touchdown. Obviously the turning point of the game, but Dabo with misuse of his timeouts, that certainly hurt, and they just lose a heartbreaker in overtime. By the way, the 9 was 7.5, so I won that game.
Florida State is going to be in the college football playoffs. I mean, put it down. They're in. And I thought, I can't remember the name of the announcer, but Greg McElroy was the color analyst. And Greg, after Clemson missed the chip shot field goal that would have put them up 3 with about a minute to go, Greg said something to the effect of, it could have been a Hollywood ending. And the play-by-play guy said, well, the writers are on strike. So I mean, it was a perfect line. It was such a great line. But the strike is over now. But Florida State just very impressive, hanging in there in a hostile environment, and I think Florida State is just, again, I think they're on their way to making the playoffs, and I think you're definitely going to get one team out of the Pac-10 or Pac-12. And I'd say the leader in the clubhouse is USC. I mean, maybe Oregon. Who knows? I mean, it's going to be fun to watch because the best football in the country is being played on the West Coast right now. I can't believe I'm saying that. I've never said that.
But I like it because we can watch it late.
Yes.
I like watching these games late.
Yeah.
They used to not be significant, but now.
And Caleb Williams is just playing phenomenal. He is as I mentioned earlier, he's the leader through, basically like a third or fourth of the way through the college football season, leader in the sports books to win the Heisman. He would become just the second player in college football history to win back-to-back Heismans. But he is absolutely just playing lights out, and I think USC is actually absolutely going to roll Colorado. I don't know what the line is yet, but if it was 21 against Oregon, and it's probably going to be more than that against USC. So as of right now, I think USC, Florida State. And whoever emerges between Ohio State and Michigan, and then you got Texas in the Big 12, and then the SEC winner. So, I mean, there's still a lot, obviously, that will happen, but the field of contenders to be in the playoffs is getting smaller.
Yeah, and it's funny, when you were listing all those teams, the SEC representative was last.
Well, yeah.
I mean, maybe that was just a coincidence, but it's hard to say, and even harder to believe that Pac-12 is producing the best college football. But they are, and it's wide open, and they have three legitimate Heisman Trophy candidates, and Bo and Caleb Williams and Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, Penix is number 2 on that list. So
what's your list there?
The 3 best players are in college football right now are all in that same conference, and I as of right now, I think I like Bo Nix. I don't know. I'm rooting for Bo Nix because he's a good kid. He's an Alabama kid, and I think he can really propel Oregon. And Oregon, man, has any team looked better than Oregon?
Not the other night, but I think Colorado was kind of ballooned going in.
Yeah.
And it burst in unbelievable fashion.
Well, what was your biggest surprise? I mean, this was such a great weekend in college football. What was your biggest surprise let's just leave it at that. Your biggest surprise.
My biggest surprise. That's a tough question.
I don't think either of us. I don't think either of us were surprised by Alabama. We both thought that they were going to come out and play well.
I don't know. I have to pause after that first interception, and then we took a couple of sacks that I think he could have thrown the ball away. So I'm not really sure. I was surprised after that, but going in, I thought Alabama would finally become Alabama, particularly up front. But I was surprised. I don't know. I really don't know. There was just a lot of college football, and I guess I was a little surprised that Ohio State was able to come back and beat Notre Dame. I was unpleasantly surprised because I really liked Dabo, and I wanted him to come back and hold on and win that game. But did you see any of it? The fumble turned everything around.
Yeah, it did. And I want to go to Justin really quick. Justin, I know we're really short on time. Your takeaway from the Alabama Ole Miss game, your big takeaway.
Big takeaway is defense is going to carry us through the rest of the season. I think the offense will learn and get better, but we're going to rely on the defense the rest of the way.
Very succinctly and appropriately and spot on. Thanks,
adroitly, Justin.
Yes. Huh? You talking about a phone?
All right, we'll move on. We'll have a good show for you Tuesday. Thank you, Lars. Thank you, Justin. We'll wrap things up. And thank Haley Sansing, Union Home Mortgage, for sponsoring this show. Appreciate it.